Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a huge question, one that sort of sits at the heart of, well, of ambition, really. What is the actual price of absolute wisdom?
And to do that, we are jumping straight into Norse mythology.
We're tracking the All-Father Odin on his relentless and frankly brutal quest for knowledge. And all our sources seem to circle around one being, Mimir, the guardian of memory.
And to really get this, you have to understand Mimir isn't just some wise old man.
No, not at all.
He's in Jotunheim, home of the giants. This is hostile territory.
Yeah.
Mimir's this isn't just a pool of water. It's basically the engine of existence.
The cosmic plumbing, you could say?
Exactly. It bubbles up from the earth, and it's the spring that feeds Yggdrasil, the world tree. The health of the entire cosmos is tied to this water.
And the sources are very specific about Mimir's ritual. Every morning, he drinks from it.
Using a very particular artifact.
The Gjallarhorn.
So this is the physical location of universal understanding.
So our mission for this deep dive is to follow Odin on that journey, just to get one single drink of that water. We need to understand the price he paid, an irreversible price, and then the bizarre second act of the story.
Right, the fate of Mimir himself, which somehow manages to double down on this whole price of wisdom theme.
Okay, so let's start with Odin's first move. He knows how dangerous Jotunheim is.
Oh yeah. The giants are not his fans.
So he doesn't show up in his godly armor. He disguises himself. Long cloak, hat, the classic wanderer. You have to appreciate the humility in that, the strategy. He's giving up his status just for a chance at an audience.
It tells you everything about his priorities. Power, safety, all of it is secondary to insight. So he makes it through this hostile land, finds Mimir, and makes his request. And it's so direct.
It really is. One drink from the water of your well, Uncle Mimir. That is all I ask for.
And he pulls the family card right away.
Immediately. He reminds Mimir that his own mother, Besla, was Mimir's sister. They're related. He's framing it as a tiny favor.
But Mimir doesn't go for it. And his negotiation tactic is it's brilliant. He doesn't argue or refuse. He just shakes his head and says nothing.
And the text makes a point of this. Seldom do those who are silent make mistakes.
He's forcing Odin to value his own request. He won't be talked into a low price.
Odin knows he's trapped. He has to raise the stakes. So he just says, I will be wise. Name your price. It's a blank check.
But what can you offer the being who guards all knowledge? He doesn't need gold. He doesn't need power.
Right.
He needs a payment that matches the game, a permanent physical piece of Odin's own identity.
And that's when Mimir delivers the line. Your eye is my price, your eye in the pool.
Wow, and the eye is so symbolic. It's the organ of physical sight.
To see everything, you have to give up seeing the world right in front of you.
It's the perfect irreversible trade, giving up mundane sight for cosmic vision.
It's a level of commitment that's hard to process. We talk about self-improvement, but this is literally carving a piece of yourself away for an abstract concept.
And Odin doesn't hesitate. That's what's so stunning.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to bargain.
No counteroffer.
None. He just asks for a knife. He does the deed himself. And then, and the sources say this specifically, he places his eye carefully in the pool.
Carefully. It wasn't an act of passion or rage. It was calculated. A necessary, horrible price for what he wanted most.
The journey risked his life, but the sacrifice guaranteed his impairment forever.
Okay, so the price is paid, he's earned his drink, he fills the Gjallarhorn with that cold water from the well, and he drains it.
And the effect is instantaneous. The texts say wisdom flooded into him. This wasn't just learning facts, it was getting, a kind of total clarity.
And the irony is immediate.
Right, he could see farther and more clearly with his one eye than he ever had with two.
His physical sight was now irrelevant. He had internal sight, a total paradox. He traded clarity of vision for clarity of mind.
And this cost was so fundamental, so permanent, it actually changed his identity. He gets new names.
Right, and they stick with him. These aren't just titles.
No, they're reminders of the bargain. He becomes Blinder, the blind god. Hor, the one-eyed. And my favorite is Balig.
Balig, the flaming-eyed one, what does that imply?
It suggests a kind of searing internal light, a vision that's too powerful for the physical world. It shows that the remaining eye isn't just compensating, it's something more, something superior, gained through pain.
And the physical receipt for this transaction is still there, in the well.
Forever. The eye is preserved by the water, and it's in this perfect state of contradiction. Seeing nothing, seeing everything. a permanent marker of the price.
So that's the first part of the story, the willing sacrifice. But Mimir's own story doesn't end there. Time passes, and he gets tangled up in the politics of a huge war.
A terrible war, yeah, between the two big god families, the Aesir and the Vanir. When they finally make peace, they do what a lot of cultures did. They exchange leaders to seal the deal.
And Odin makes a strategic error. He sends Mimir away.
A huge error. He sends Mimir to the Vanir to be an advisor for their new chief, an Aesir god named Honir.
And Honir, by all accounts, looked the part. Tall, handsome, the ideal king.
And as long as Mimir was right there, whispering in his ear, Honir acted like one. He was wise, made good decisions. The whole thing seemed to be working.
But the Vanirs are smart. They're watching. And they notice something's off.
They notice Honir is completely dependent. The sources are explicit. Without Mimir, Honir was unable to come to a decision.
So he was just a vessel, a mouthpiece.
Exactly. The moment Mimir wasn't around, Honir was paralyzed. All image, no substance. And the Vanir, well, they grew tired of this charade very quickly.
They realized they'd been given a puppet, and Mimir was the one pulling the strings.
And this is where it gets really dark. They decide to get revenge. But not on Honir.
No, not on the king, the symbol of the peace treaty. They go after the source.
They go after the wisdom itself. They bypass the political figure and attack the intellectual threat. They cut off Mimir's head.
And as a final insult, a diplomatic slap in the face, they send it back to Odin.
It's just a brutal statement. Having absolute knowledge makes you a target, especially when politics are involved.
What I find so telling is Odin's reaction. The texts don't say he was angry or that he mourned. His first thought was preservation.
Pure pragmatism. Knowledge over sentiment. He knew Mimir's mind was too valuable an asset to lose.
So he starts this almost alchemical process. First, he rubs the head with herbs to stop it from rotting.
A practical first step. But then comes the magic. He chants these powerful charms and incantations over it. He's basically using a kind of necromantic technology to save the data.
And it works.
It works. Mimir's head opens its eyes and starts talking, giving advice just as good as it ever was.
It's the preservation of a resource beyond the limits of life itself.
And then Odin completes the circle. He takes the head back to the well, back to the source, and he places it beside his eye in the waters of knowledge.
So now, the two great sacrifices, the two artifacts of wisdom, are reunited.
So if you go to that well in the mythology, you find a sightless eye and a talking head, floating in water that holds knowledge of the future and of the past. Absolute knowledge, all concentrated in one place.
Which brings us to the third artifact, the Jallar horn. The horn Odin used to take that first drink.
Right, he doesn't keep it, he gives it away.
To Heimdall, the watchman of the gods. And now the horn, just like the eye and the head, has one single final purpose.
And it's a huge one. So the sources say that horn will wake the gods no matter where they are, no matter how deeply they sleep. But it only gets used once.
Just once.
At the very end of all things, at Ragnarok.
So when you put it all together, what does this saga really tell you? For me, the final synthesis is that in this mythology, wisdom isn't passive. It's painful. It requires a permanent sacrifice of the self Odin's eye, and it requires active magical preservation after death Mimir's head.
It's stored knowledge. It's a potent resource that exists outside the body, always ready. To recap the key nuggets for you. Mimir's silence was his strength in negotiation. Odin was pragmatic enough to mutilate himself for knowledge, and later to preserve a severed head to keep that knowledge.
And maybe the biggest lesson is that wisdom, when it's too effective, becomes a threat. It makes you a target.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider. The well now holds a sightless eye and a speaking head containing all knowledge of the past and future. So what does it mean for knowledge to be so absolute that it lives in a part of the body that can't see, next to a part that can't live? This isn't wisdom you can just share over coffee. It's knowledge bought with blood and preserved by magic.
It seems to be a signal that the kind of insight that truly changes the world, it demands everything from you. It changes who you are permanently with no way back.
That is the deep dive. Thanks for listening.